We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live boxing ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live. Nah, man. Turki Al-Sheikh tries to double back. It's too late to apologize. It's too late. It is too late to apologize. Turki has now done a Spaces where he attempts to clear the air after much was made of him entering with Dana White into boxing with this new TKO project. Now, I'm gonna tell you what he's saying now, and then we'll go through the beginning. He says in a brand new Spaces, quote, "This league is not a project, not against anyone, not against the commission, not against the promoters. This is my opinion, and this is from my side. It is a project that will have space in the market, and we will still see the four belts and the commissions and the promoters. The market is huge, and no one can delete anyone from this market. I see what happened in the market in the last week, and I understand the panic in the market because there are a lot of companies and a lot of promoters. What I want to say, we care about the fans and the fighters, and we support the fans and the fighters, and we will continue doing the big fights for the people. We will not announce before the 3rd of May all the details, and there is a surprise about who will be the promoter of this big fight and the platform you will see the big fight on," end quote. Nah, man. Listen, Turki trying to double back and back off the block. This is not the energy he initially came with, but after poor feedback and backlash from many people in boxing, fans, media, the sanctioning bodies, now it sounds like he's singing a different tune. That's my honest opinion. So what do I mean? So initially, when Turki started to talk about TKO, he was rather braggadocious. He was basically sounding, and this is my interpretation of it, but he was basically sounding like, listen, I just did a deal with TKO and Dana White, and we're crushing everything moving in the world of boxing. Nobody will be able to withstand what we got coming, and the only belt that will matter are my belts. The Ring magazine belt, because I own Ring, and whatever TKO 1 belt, we're going full on UFC model, and that's that. And get rode on. Everybody in the way will get rode on. Immediately after, you heard promoters, sanctioning bodies, fans, media, personalities like myself come out and explain the dangers of what Turki was, his initial plan and how he was coming across. It was coming across like a tyrant and a dictator, and like he was basically wiping off other people off the map. Now, after this poor feedback, the dust has settled, and now he's singing a different tune like, no, we still want the commissioning bodies, and we still want the multiple belts, and there's room at the table for everyone. But why did you approach it like this? Like, he's saying stuff like, I understand the market and people have questions because there's a lot, whatever he said there's a lot of promoters in companies, but it has nothing to do with being, boxing has always had a lot of promoters in companies. It has nothing to do with the entry of another promoter. We've seen 50 Cent, G-Unit, hey, something special, man. You gotta do something, baby. Make it hot, ninja. Right? We've seen 50 Cent try his hand at boxing. Jay-Z and Rock Nation try their hand at boxing. That is not the issue. A lot of people have come in and, try to do something in boxing. Triller, it's how you went about it. You came in like you smacking and laying stuff down, and came out like, don't put the WBC belts in this photo op with Canelo's skull. And that directly resulted in the sanctioning bodies. All of a sudden, you've seen all the WBC fighters get on their social medias and say, like, we love being a champion. We bleed green, and we are proud WBC champions, and things like that. So it completely backfired. Like, it's literally, I told you guys from the beginning, I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. I promise you, whether you like me, whether you don't like me, it all adds up. Period. The stuff I say more often than not comes true. I told you one major issue with Turki Al-Sheikh's approach is that he likes to talk. He talks like, oh, we want to make Teofimo Lopez versus Richardson Hitchens. We want Teofimo to fight at Alcatraz. Fast forward to the future, he's not fighting Hitchens, which actually makes more sense. Teo is fighting in New York, Times Square. You could have had two guys who claim New York fighting there, but then you get a West Coast guy like Barbosa, and then you put him in New York, right? When you could have just had a unification with 240-pound New York champions, right? And put them in Times Square to attract more people, right? But you didn't do that. So why were we even talking about the Hitchens fight? Then you're talking about Teo fighting in Alcatraz, and then now they're saying, oh, we want to do Alcatraz March of 2026. I thought Teo was fighting there. You said Ryan Garcia is fighting Pitbull Cruz, and you said Martin Bacoli and F.A. Ajagba in the IBF Eliminator was going to be on that card with Devin Haney. Fast forward to the future, Ryan's not fighting Pitbull Cruz. He's fighting Rowley, and you pulled Bacoli to get knocked out by Parker, and then now he's not fighting on that card at all. So this is what happens when you blabbermouth all your plans before the plans are really ready, and you have to start taking stuff back. And it's no different. He, in my opinion, Turki got the deal done with TKO and Dana White, and he started feeling himself. And he was like, yo, we're coming to do this, and nobody can match us. This league is going to be different, blah, blah, blah. And then it opened a can of worms that he wasn't ready for. It's like the bad guy in a movie, and he reveals to the good guy, Tom Cruise, in Mission Impossible, his complete plan, and then he walks away and leaves Tom Cruise with the henchmen tied up. Seemingly, they're going to take care of Tom Cruise, but then Tom Cruise finds a way to free himself and untie himself from the shackles or ropes, and then now he beats up the henchmen, and he's equipped with the full plan what you plan to do. Like, oh, the bomb is here, and you're leaving on a helicopter, so I got to defuse the bomb, then go after you. He knows the whole play. This is, in essence, what Turki did. He's the bad guy in the movie, that cliche situation and cliche moment where the bad guy spoils and tells the whole plan, and instead of just like executing the good guy so he can't do nothing about it, he walks away, and then the good guy retaliates. Basically, you don't do that. You don't say you're gonna put people out of business and warn them. You have to. Why are like natural disasters so devastating? Because nobody was prepared for it. People weren't prepared for an earthquake in Haiti, or this big tsunami, or they didn't expect this hurricane. They didn't expect these California fires. That's why they're so devastating, because it just hits and you have to react on the spot. So if you don't have a fire safe, if you don't have all your personal belongings in a place where you can easily access them and leave on a whim, then you're going to be, I lost a bunch of stuff in this fire, and that's the unfortunate part about a natural disaster. But why would Turki talk this talk and, come out with almost these intentions publicly? Why? Like, what do you think? How do you think people were going to respond to this? That's a real question. Like, it's like somebody saying, oh, Ego, your YouTube channel sucks. I'm going to put you out of business. Thanks for the warning. Now I'm going to up my game because you said that. Like, why would I all I've worked for my whole life is moments like these. My brand, my surname, I've repped to the fullest to make that a thing where people recognize my name, my face, my brand. And you're telling me all of that is going to end because you're allegedly a competitor. Why would I be good with that? Why would I sit back and just allow you to like bully me and wipe my brand off the map? Especially when you told me you would have been better off not saying nothing and ultimately just trying to do it and make good on it. So to me, again, Turki, his ego is out of control, it seems, and no pun intended, but he likes to talk, and the more you talk, even Dana White, he says it, obviously he's doing business with Turki, so he's not going to say it really blunt, you know what I mean? Because Turki is providing him infrastructure and money. But Dana White was doing an interview, I think, with Pat McAfee, and he was like, man, I wish Turki would pump his brakes on some of these announcements. Like, we are not ready to go. And we got Dana White says with his TKO, they don't want to work with people, right? If they can get away with it, they don't want to be working with a bunch of promoters and sanctioning bodies. So now, after all of this came out and people reacted how they should have reacted, when you say you're going to change the whole dichotomy of boxing and the whole landscape, like some of these sanctioned bodies, I don't know exactly when they were founded, but we're talking about 50 plus years of lineage. And one guy says, I'm going to come in and team up and we're getting rid of everything, you know. That's not going to bode well with a lot of people. People aren't going to just be okay with that, right? Especially if you're involved. And then Turki also made insensitive comments like, me and Dana will probably leave some promoters behind in Alcatraz, which is a nefarious prison. Why would you say that? Like, what promoter would that be? Eddie Hearn you're talking about, or Frank Warren? Why would somebody want to work with you if you're saying that you're going to leave them in the dust and leave them in a prison and leave them behind? So it sounds like you got this deal, or even Oscar De La Hoya. He's another promoter that has been collaborating frequently with Turki. You know what I mean? I wouldn't, if I was Oscar, Eddie, Frank Warren, why would I want to hear that? You seem buddy with Dana White and you talk about leaving other promoters behind. So to me, it was just a bad play. And now this is the cleanup work. This is the damage control, if you will. So now you've been forced and reduced to double backing and coming with a different approach because the feedback was so poor. You talk about leaving promoters. Eddie Hearn used to call Turki his excellency. But if you listen, like, now keep in mind, Boxing Ego, my videos got crazy reach. So sometimes, like, now that I'm pointing it out and saying it, I don't know if Eddie Hearn will now come out and change it. But if you listen to old videos, Eddie Hearn would address Turki as his excellency. But then after he teamed up with Dana White, he been calling him Turki. Little subtleties. Now again, if this video gets back to Eddie Hearn's side or whatever, he might change it and go back to his excellency. But I'm talking about since the TKO Dana White partnership, he ain't been calling him his excellency like that. You guys got to pay attention to the little subtleties in life. I'll leave it at that. So I think Turki has really put himself in a bad position because you would have been better with a Trojan horse type of approach. Like, if the people were inside the Trojan horse making noise, then it wouldn't have fooled anybody and they could have set it on fire or something like that, or ambushed you. But it was a sneak attack, and those unannounced, unplanned, you thought it was a gift. Oh, look at this giant Trojan horse. How nice. You know what I mean? And then come to find out it had armed men inside ready to go to war and die. You know what I mean? So Turki would have been better with the Trojan horse approach, in my opinion. But now you already put people on guard. You could try to clean it up now and say, oh, we like all the sanctioning bodies, but you've already shunned the WBC belt out of the Canelo skull pictures. If you go look at all the Canelo skull pictures from the press conference, you don't see Canelo posed with the green belt. That's the Mexican belt. That's the green company, the green belt, the WBC is the only belt that was founded in Mexico out of the 4 sanctioning bodies, to my knowledge, right? So you have the green belt from Mexico, the same place, in Mexico as Canelo. And he's always had a pretty good relationship with the WBC, except for when he was mad at them for a period of time. But then they've since patched that up, blah, blah, blah. And then you didn't let him take pictures. Go look at the photo ops. So the damage to me is already done. You can't almost have this Freudian slip, or it wasn't even really a Freudian slip. He just outright said, I'm about to crush these dudes and the sanctioning bodies won't be able to compete, blah, blah, right? You can't do that and then retract it. We still know. It's like, I got a great example. Devin Haney, right? And I know some people, what do you mean, Devin Haney? What does Devin have to do with this, Ego? Let me explain. Devin Haney actually filed a lawsuit against Ryan Garcia. Facts, right? That's a known fact that he filed a lawsuit. However, he then got some kind of deal going on with Turki and Ryan Garcia, where if they win their next interim fights, they are said to rematch each other. But one of those deal points, if you will, was that Devin and Bill had to drop the lawsuit against Ryan, and Ryan would have to enroll in VADA testing, right? So let's say that happens and the lawsuit is formally dropped. But Devin Haney's name is already attached to the whole lawsuit business, because before you had this deal with Turki, you tried to sue Ryan Garcia. Now, even if it doesn't make it to court because you dissolved the lawsuit, guess what? Your name is attached. The intent was there. You were going to do it if it weren't for the rematch and Turki setting that standard, right? So the point I'm making to connect it is people know the intent is there, so it doesn't change it even if you renege on it, even if you change it, even if you retract it. We already know you were down to sue Ryan Garcia for battery. So the damage is already done. That's just what it is, because you really wanted to sue him for battery, period. So the damage to me has definitely been done in this situation. Even if you drop the lawsuit, it's not going to stop fans from calling you Devin the lawsuit Haney and still attaching your name to this lawsuit business, right? It's like the scene in the movie, the bad guy tried to shoot the good guy and his gun jammed. I mean, you still pulled the trigger and you were down, but you had a malfunction. So you think the good guy is gonna be like, oh, let me not try to get him out of here, when he was definitely down to pull the trigger before his gun misfired and jammed. I mean, the intent was there. You still try to pull the trigger. So to me, that's what it is. Turki can do spaces and try to like walk back the comments and clean them up. But at the end of the day, we know what you said initially, and that's what people, I believe, are going to go with. They're going to believe that getting the WBC out the picture, in the pictures, the photo op for Canelo's skull, you said you're going to crush everybody. You want to leave promoters in Alcatraz. That's what people, in my opinion, are going to go with. They're not going to go with these new statements, because these new statements sound, like I said, like damage control. It really does. It sounds like somebody who got called out and it backfired. So now, since you haven't done, like you haven't, it's just dumb. Like you haven't even got TKO off the ground. You need people's buy-in. You know what I mean? You let the mask slip before you even got this thing, before you had one TKO boxing event done. You know what I mean? And even if you do Crawford Canelo, who cares? That's like really kind of like a one-off type of fight. So it's like, that's not enough to sustain TKO's long-term, interest in boxing on a one-off event. Like, one-off events happen, cool. So it's gonna come, it's gonna go. You can't really build off that. Canelo's like in an older stage of his career. Bud is 37, will be 38 in September. So it's like, you can't really build from that. These aren't like young budding stars who are, in their 20s. So Turki, he made his bed. Now he got a lie on it. He's kind of walking back to comments. We unpacked. Live streaming can be tough, which is why I use Streamyard. Click the link in the description for Streamyard, which is an awesome tool that enables you to set up your stream with ease of use. Get great results with live streaming. It's what I use. Stream to social media with ease with Streamyard. Live streaming is here to stay. Engage with your audience using Streamyard. Great way to reach out to your audience and connect. So you need a tool that can do that.